real, you know, honest fighting game projectile in a lot of ways. It is such a check. And so that's why I'm a little bit biased going into this. But, you know, of course, Mordex, I feel like such a crowd favorite always.
Yeah, you definitely can't deny Mordex as being one of the faces of Brawlhalla in terms of the meta and the legends. And so far, Seijaru came out on top with the orb gameplay, but now versus the Gauntlet, I feel like it's a little scary to go off stage. You never know what Gauntlet players are able to pull out of their bag of tricks, but nonetheless we get Sphynx picking up the Scythe now, who's looking to create some space between, but it doesn't seem like you can find any sort of control or reprieve from this pressure as Seijaru is able to get the sidelight into recovery there on Sphynx and picking up an orb immediately. I feel like if you're trying to weapon starve someone, you want no other weapon besides orb. Orb is so good at dealing with unarmed.
Orb pushes you away. It says, I'm gonna need a little bit space, and then doesn't talk to you for 3 weeks. Okay, that is exactly what this weapon is here to do, but at the moment, the recovery gonna get stuffed out by Sphynx's recovery as well, able to go ahead and successfully KO off the top, Scythe in hand. But this is gonna be a game of strings. This is it. We got 2 gauntlets on the screen, and we got Scythe. Let's see who's able to pull it off better.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, Scythe game 1 is definitely a tough weapon to find some really big strings on. I feel like this is kind of your feel out stage. Like, all right, how do they react off of getting hit with a side air or an end light, moves that are very important in getting things going. And you're seeing their read attempt gets immediately reversal by side air, going for a deep side air. Is Seijaru, who's able to get the ground pound as well, or the down air as well. But man, you can't find any sort of control versus these gauntlets. These gauntlets are absolutely smothering.
I cannot believe that Scythe recovery ever ended up touching the side of the stage. Sphynx was able to go ahead and make it back on and even find that stock onto Seijaru as well. Really gentle lead at the moment. You know, of course, if you want consistent KOs, GCD light into the recovery is going to be a tried and true bread and butter confirm. So, stock count completely even. Seijaru holding on to orb at the moment. Just looking to scout out a landing with a potential end light. Not going to find it quite yet. Side light going to whiff. End light coming out a little bit too soon. And Sphynx has been able to consistently and safely land.
That's going to be very important moving forward here. And I feel like Seijaru hasn't found as much dominance in terms of juggling with the orb. As I say that, getting 2 downlights into a recovery there, but not anything too scary, especially as opposed to the gauntlets, as Sphynx is able to come out on top of the damage lead. Seijaru on the orb now looking to try to get up an edge guard of their own, but can't flip the situation, and Sphynx going very deep there, trying to line up a nair, didn't find it. Seijaru on the gauntlet, so this is where you want to make your money. GCN light to try to call out a high landing there. That was crazy.
Yeah, that would have been crazy to be able to take it off the top. Seijaru backing off a little bit, gonna be looking for another side light, dodging away, recovering, going back onto the stage with the sider, just keeps on dashing and looking for that end light. Sphynx's weapon successfully gonna be knocked away. No denial. Seijaru just wants to keep on going out there and keep on applying the heat.
Pressure is so much for Sphynx here, and I don't know exactly how you get off this wall comfortably. I guess you just walk off the wall and get on to stage, but still falling into that end light from Seijaru, who's looking to close out this stock with a narrow recovery here.
That's it.
Or dash end light to close out game 1. That was a lot closer than I thought. That was clean.
So many of those dash up end lights were successful for Seijaru. I mean, and what's not to appreciate? Gauntlet end light is active. That move works out. When you press it, it is on the screen for a significant amount of time. So really good stuff to Seijaru being able to go ahead and close out in game number 1. I do love how Seijaru kept on the pressure as the set went on.
Yeah, I think it's easy in the first stock to really like kind of impose your will on the landing, but able to do that throughout the game all the way into last stock, and even in spots where you have a damage deficit, and if you mess up your pressure, you get KO'd for it. Seijaru was showing like, I have a game plan and it's to smother you, and I won't stop doing it for anything really. And it's cool to see like having that confidence even in those really clutch spots. Definitely something to be worried about if you're Sphynx here, who been struggling in those spots, but the Scythe coming online. I mean, I always talk about it. Game 1 Scythe not so good. Game 2 Scythe goes crazy.
Game 2 Scythe, that's right, because you need a second to be able to adjust your spacing, and at the moment, Sphynx has done nothing but that. So much denial, downer, scooping you, putting you off stage, siding through the stage spike, getting in there as well, and cleaning it up. Sphynx is looking amazing at the moment.
This is looking very, very different than game number 1. The Scythe just needed a little bit of time to warm up, and it all of a sudden was able to almost 0 to KO Seijaru there, who's now on the gauntlets, throws the weapon away in an attempt to kind of disrupt the landing option, picking up the orb here, which finds some good early damage, but I feel like in the middle damage department, really not able to set up any advantageous edge guards and struggling to do so there.
Seijaru, that was so risky going out there through the ground pound, still was able to make it back onto the stage relatively unscathed, opting to go right back to the gauntlets, avoiding one of those ground pounds because of how it carries your momentum. The GC Sig not going to be enough to touch the wall because your momentum was locked there for a second and you couldn't drift to the side in time. I cannot believe that Seijaru didn't touch the wall.
Yeah, an interesting thing about that Sig as opposed to a couple other ones is you can't really drift horizontally at the apex of it. A lot of the other legends, like let's say a Jaeyun and Sig on Sword, you can find a little bit of a horizontal drift, but on Petra you can't find any at all, and unfortunately they're unable to make it back, and that kind of came off the back of a very aggressive edge guard. As I say that, a ground pound comes in to cover the wall, but you got to be careful off stage, especially versus the Sphynx gauntlets, who's so willing to scrap off stage and try to flip those edge guard situations.
I love what Seijaru is doing after every single downer, which is exactly what you should be doing with Gauntlet. You hit downer and then you just wait. And then sometimes you mix up going for the immediate option if they don't dodge, right? If they've started to jump out. Or if you feel like they're always going to dodge out of Gauntlet downer, you're going to reposition and wait. And that is how Seijaru has found so many of the openings over and over again.
I definitely agree, and seeing the orb here, and I don't know exactly if we saw a lot of like orb able to confirm KOs. As I say that, it confirms one there with the down air. You have to run all the way to the other side, avoiding the weapon toss, and that was crazy.
That was optimal. I cannot believe that Seijaru had enough resources to actually get successfully onto the other side. And Light waits a little bit, able to get the side light as well. Goes for the non-committal falling neutral because then you can go ahead and immediately back away. Going for End Light to catch landings is so risky when somebody's delaying their options. And speaking of delaying, Sphynx, really good side light, waited, and then was able to find the recovery, catching the dodge out.
Yeah, the absolute classic sidelight into wait for the option afterwards. Seijaru there, I don't even think, no, we did see a dodge away, and the dodge away got covered very, very cleanly with that recovery. And yeah, I feel like the game kind of snowballed as soon as Sphynx was able to get that first KO on the scythe. Even though it was kind of close in terms of stock count, I feel like Sphynx had a lot of control. It was a 3-stock-to-1 lead at one point, but Seijaru showed like I can definitely make a comeback happen on the orb. We saw a ground pound KO, we saw a down air KO. So Seijaru, like, you know, smothering you with the gauntlets and then switching over to the orb to confirm some of these tricky edgeguard situations. I definitely like to see it, especially edgeguarding with the orb. A lot safer to do so than versus the gauntlet mirror, because it's so easy for Mordex to flip you and find an early KO because you make a mistake off stage.
Neutral comes out, Seijaru going out there, but never really committing for the downer or the neutral. Just opts to keep coming back on with the recovery, and as a result, Sphynx made it back on too, sliding off with that sider. Seijaru fighting that such a risky committal sider, because had that not connected, you would have been sweating in a bit of a nasty position. It does not matter. The juggle does not stop the downer connect. When you get that spike, when it's finally not the grounded downer and you get that spike, it feels so good, PJ.
Yeah, that's an orb classic there. See the unarmed attempt here, gets the side light, sends back off stage, looking to line up an end or down light into ground pound potentially. We see a haymaker there miss its connection, and all of a sudden now you got Seijaru, who has the gauntlets again and looks to punish you for your mistakes. Going for the down air there, and
he's
avoiding the ground pound.
It's gonna be again Seijaru going back over the stage with the recovery, and Sphynx just waited. Sphynx waited, held on to the stage, and was able to successfully punish, committing to that downer. Not able to get that whiff punish with the neutral either.
For these orb connections here, getting the side light into side air at this kind of past 150 damage to send off stage. Going for the GC down sig there, the spirit bomb, but didn't find its full connection. Side light there on the jump or dash line right in front, but didn't get a much string off of it, and there a string finds its connection. You got Seijaru, who gets the side light into the recovery to close out that stock, and this is definitely different than the first couple games. Now you're seeing Seijaru with a lead, which we haven't seen all too much.
End light, side light, D light as well. That already put you into the yellow. That's a good amount of damage. Seijaru finding another end light, backing off, looking for that D light into the neutral as well. Seijaru is doing amazing at the moment, but Sphynx fighting back a little bit, able to get the neutral, comes back out there for the sider. For once, I've seen Scythe Downer not connect when the opponent is next to it. What am I watching?
Yeah, there are crazy things happening here in Southeast Asia.
Oh!
But yeah, could not find a way back to the stage. They're getting a little too aggressive. I feel like there we were looking to see a rising side air, but instead we see a falling one, and you get punished very hard by Seijaru. He's able to get a ground pound and take the third game pretty cleanly with a 2-stock.
Yes, Seijaru's playing quite well at the moment. I have to say, really picking up the pace after the previous few games. I have to say the advantage state on that last stock with the orb was pretty solid. It was pretty good. Look at Petra's attack stat. Okay, look at Petra's force really quickly. Petra, especially if you're getting those kinds of dodge reads, what Seijaru is doing is hitting and then resetting and waiting. Hitting, resetting, waiting, and then oftentimes reacting to his opponent's dodge, and is succeeding with it as well.
Yeah, just some very, very clean offensive pressure, and it continues to kind of compound off of what you saw in game 1, which was just a lot of hitboxes, kind of making it so that you can't find any sort of control as Sphynx, and then now you're seeing kind of those coverages come in on the Petra, and this is where it gets really, really difficult to get anything going on Mordex, is when your opponent is able to start reading you and making it so that you can't find any footing, and you're already seeing the smothering game plan from Seijaru, who hits 2 nairs there, but gets flipped off stage by the Scythe Classic, and Endlight into side air connects, and this is a scary spot to be in. The very low recovery in an attempt to edge guard there didn't find its connection. We're back to center stage.
Oh my gosh, the D-Light neutrally into the DP. That was crazy. Okay, dashing and jumping, able to get that grab pound Sphynx. You know, I thought that was going to be Seijaru's stock, but Sphynx got in there. Sphynx got in there and cleaned it up.
On the back of an unarmed end light, or sorry, side light to just send off stage, and then immediate pickup ground pound and immediate pickup there on the stock with that side air to close out that one, and we're down to an even game or even stock 2 here. But I think overall I feel like somebody is coming out on top in these stock situations. You're not seeing like both players living to like 150 damage on their stock. It's somebody stringing someone and then KOing them, and the other person on the comeback attempt, and you're already seeing this here on Seijaru, who gets a big orb extension there.
I feel like I see a little habit. I think Sphynx, every time that we've seen a dodge, it has been consistently the same dodge out, which I feel like is important to do against Gauntlet, so that you're not getting hit with like a recovery all the time. But Sphynx has done this really, really often after getting hit by either like an Orb D-Light or like a Gauntlet side light. I want to see Seijaru capitalize on this.
Yeah, you definitely can find a lot of punishment if you just get caught dodging away by orb. You can get like side light and then a GC other side light off of the dodge away. So you have to be very careful here. But
you have to be a little bit closer, right? Because a little bit too far away, and the GC side light's not going to connect, which we did see actually a couple of times transpire. So I'm curious. I have that tell in my mind. I'm curious if Seijaru can pick up on that. Dodging in that time around, though, so maybe proving me wrong. Sphynx dashing in, dashing out, finding a side light of their own as well.
The mirror has been very important on who's able to close out these stocks, but there it is. You called out the dodge away, and it gets capitalized there with a double side light into the recovery on the gauntlets. You can't do it forever, because eventually Seijaru will also pick up on it.
Yep, that's right. That's that dodge out. And so the question is, will you adapt? Or honestly, doesn't even matter, because Seijaru is the one that is off stage. Sphynx patrolling the air, threatening so much, dashing through, crossing up, and the side light didn't connect that time. The recovery didn't KO off the top. Seijaru picks up gauntlets, dodging out as well here, and cannot get back down onto the stage. That is going to be it. That's going to be the catch with the side light, and that's going to be the KO.
Forcing a game 5 there, and it could have definitely gotten scary, but really smart, kind of calculated aggression there on that last stock, realizing, okay, I disarmed Seijaru, so I can't get reversal too bad. I'll go for the exhausted recovery. The exhausted recovery doesn't KO, but it sends and kind of forces forces Seijaru to land in the corner, and then Sphynx is able to capitalize there. So it was almost a good comeback from Seijaru, but it wasn't quite enough as we get into this game 5, as we get Seijaru switching off the Petra in favor of the Cannon in the Onyx. So this should be a very interesting counter pick. Looking for some space potentially versus the Mordex, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't actually disagree with this pick very much, especially if you think about, you know, this is the most consistent I've seen Gauntlets KO in a while. Gauntlets can be one of those weapons where it's like, hey, if you KO, you KO. If you don't, you don't. So sticking with the Gauntlets on this is going to be a good idea. Onyx is always going to be an amazing idea just because, you know, that defense kind of egregious. You get to survive a long time. You get to stay on the screen for a long time, which really matters, especially if you consider how soon Seijaru was getting KO'd off the top.
Yeah, the cannon in hand now. We'll see how it kind of changes, and already we're seeing kind of a similar game plan to the Gauntlets, like looking to stay very grounded and then catching landings with side light. Definitely a lot easier to do so on the cannon. As I say that, the double side light into side air into the immediate weapon toss. Oh my goodness, that is just a completely different beast to handle, where as in Gauntlet you get hit by that side light, it's a vertical mix up, but now cannon forces you off stage, and as I say that, immediately scooping low with that down air, and we have a very even game here.
What a shove. You know, every time I get hit by Scythe down, I feel like somebody just like pushed me full force, you know? At the moment, neutral doesn't connect. Seijaru gonna be sliding off with that down as well. Picking up gauntlets. We got a bit of a gauntlet ditto happening right now. Also, just want to mention, you know, the skin choice from Seijaru, very tasteful. This is a beautiful Onyx skin.
Yeah, I think we saw Meg D using this earlier in the week at a community event, but nonetheless, like, yeah, it's important to have good drip, and definitely helps out here. But right now, you're going to need a little bit more than that versus Sphynx, who's been winning this gauntlet mirror pretty consistently. A nice end light to send off stage there, but a side light into recovery doesn't connect because a dodge away comes in as a defensive option. Looking to pick up a cannon, can't dodge through that end light, which is very active, and now you get weapon starved. That weapon toss might have been a little ill-timed because you're getting punished for it.
Can't believe that GCD light that did not give Seijaru enough time to be able to jump away, and so the end light ended up connecting and it put him right back into disadvantage. Sphynx is looking so comfortable this game so far, whipping the side light, neutral down it as well. Cannon sider comes out, okay, just putting Sphynx off stage for just a moment in time, and like gonna be in the wrong direction. You need it to go behind you. Oh no, Cider chase dodge in, but Seijaru is not getting any cannon strings. Cannon is a weapon that needs them. It can't just have a bunch of one-off hits.
Yeah, especially when you're not winning the gauntlet mirror. You can use cannon as a way to confirm KOs, but you have to get some damage to do so as the side stick comes in, and now we're both unarmed, going for the dash jump turnaround. Ground pound once again didn't find enough momentum, but the end light will send off stage, and now you have one more mix-up. It's guess for game on the wall, and you guess right with the dodge in place to avoid that side light, but not there as the dodge down gets punished by the recovery, and Sphynx is able to close out this game 5 with a 2-stock and a very dominant last couple games.
This was a suspiciously large amount of sidelight recoveries coming out. You know, it's very good for Sphynx. I would like to clarify this. If Gauntlet is finding those, that's amazing. You have made this weapon consistent.